Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Yangna. Welcome to the sacred place and the sacred space. This is one of the most important moments in the history of this land. One of the most important moments, certainly for me and my colleagues who have been elected by the present-day inhabitants of this space to represent all peoples and to unearth all histories and to give voice to all narrative. We have some very important announcements to make here today, but we start with where we started. And for the young people, or maybe even seniors in our city who don't know the history of this place, I'd like to turn over first to Rudy Ortega Jr., who's the president of the Fernandino Tatavium Band of Mission Indians, and Chief Anthony Morales of the Gabrielena Tongva San Gabriel Band of Mission Indians, to begin our ceremonies today.
Thank you, Mayor. Miiha yoyi yehiya, nechochan. Greetings, good morning. My name is Tribal Chairman Chief Anthony Morales of the Gabrielino San Gabriel Band of Mission Indians. And with me today is some of my tribal council and members. And we are the direct lineal descendants of that ancestry that founded and built San Gabriel Mission, which they're celebrating their Jubilee year, the 250th this year. And 10 years after the founding of San Gabriel Mission in 1771, in 1781, we were our tribe, our ancestors also founded and established what we call Los Angeles, Yagna. Yagna is Los Angeles. It was one of our major villages in what is today Los Angeles. And it's an honor for me to be here to welcome all of you to our ancestral land, the village of Yagna. For me, it's a special event. It's a celebration. It's also an honoring in the memory of our ancestors. And for me, today is historical. But I think this history started a few years back where Councilmember O'Farrell and some of us, the local tribal members, we went before the city council. It took a couple years, of course, but we were able to establish this as Indigenous Day. No more Columbus. So that was a great event. And as we speak today, that has really taken off across the country. Now major cities and other states throughout the country are now acknowledging today as Indigenous Day, and also giving Native Americans throughout the country their say in doing what we call land acknowledgements, just to let everyone know on whose land you're on, the first peoples of the land. And it's also meaningful for me because over the weekend I noticed that President Biden, along with Interior Secretary Deb Haaland, who is the first Native American Secretary of the Interior, and other tribal officials, they signed the document and acknowledging today as Indigenous Day here in the United States, well, in Native America. I just want to just share that for anyone who comes upon our ancestral land within the Los Angeles Basin, that they be respectful and acknowledge on whose land they're on, and to be mindful in all your everyday activities and honorable to the local tribe on whose land you're on. For me, now today, it's historical, yes, but it's historical in a different way also, not just because it's Indigenous Day. It's historical because Native Americans have been the least people heard. But now with what's going on in today's times, I feel that it's our opportunity to be heard and to be visible. especially in light of what we witnessed a few weeks ago in Manhattan Beach, where there was some land returned that was taken away from a family through eminent domain. Well, I'm hopeful that we can sit together with the officials of the Los Angeles City and Los Angeles County, where we can also address, hopefully, our unceded land in our ancestral territory. And I would just like to sing a song in honor of the ones who came before us and who are now in their final resting place, our ancestors. And the song that we're going to sing is, oh my ancestors, listen to my heart. Oh my ancestors, here is my heart. Some of my tribal members, singers that want to step up here. This is my little niece right here, and I told her that today she's royalty. This is our little princess. Yes. Being that I'm the chief of the tribe, and I'm one of the main tribal leaders, I officially announced that she's royalty. She's our family, and this is our future right here. This is the ones that we definitely have to strive forward and to be heard and to be visible. It's for them, because they are going to be our future, and they are going to be the caretakers of our culture once we take our final journey. So it's important that we teach and show all our children our culture, our songs, our dances, everything that is going to require for them to continue our culture. So again, our song is an honor song to the ancestors. Taihanuka nation, Taihanuka nation, Hakwa nation na hakwa hey, na hakwa nation na hakwa hey. Taihanuka nation, Taihanuka nation, na hakwa nation na hakwa hey, na hakwa nation na hakwa hey. Taihanuka nation, Taihanuka nation, na hakwa nation na hakwa hey. Nahakwa nishu nahakwa hey. Taihanuka nation, Taihanuka nation, nahakwa nishu nahakwa hey. Nahakwa nishu nahakwa hey. What? Ekoshem. Wa'at guwata Taihanuka. I ask our ancestors to continue watching over our ancestral land, to continue watching over this major village, Yagna, Los Angeles, to bless el pueblo de la Reina de Los Angeles. And I thank all of you, and Yagna Dodgers, Los Angeles. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Morales. My name is Rudy Ortega Jr. Rudy Ortega Jr. I am the Fernandino Tataviam Band of Mission Indians Tribal President, and today, as we mark, and as Chairman Morales mentioned, the struggles and the history of what we're doing here today, an acknowledgement of the indigenous people, the first people of Los Angeles. So I brought my cousin, Mark Villaseñor, who's Vice President of the tribe, my son, Noli Ortega. We're going to sing a song. We're going to welcome, the song we sing is to welcome everybody in. And traditionally, we're going to welcome the mayor, the council members, and everyone who's watching, and everyone who's here today into the ceremony today. Let's go in front. So the words of the song is quite simple. It means come and enter this place that we're here today. The word Pacoima, which is a town in Los Angeles, is the root word of that word. Paco means enter. Kima means come. And those are the words of the song that we sang today. And thank you again for us to come out and acknowledge today.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. President, Mr. Chair, to all the tribal members who are here today. As I mentioned, this is one of the most significant days, I believe, in this place's history. I'm really proud to be joined by two members elected by the inhabitants of this land these days. Councilmember Mitch O'Farrell, who really had led not just a local movement, but a national movement, which I was so proud. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for remembering that our President of the United States, for the first time, first president to ever recognize Indigenous Peoples Day, held that ceremony. I believe that started right here with a member of the Wyandotte tribe who is here with us, Mitch O'Farrell. Councilmember Kevin De León, who also, like myself, has native blood, probably south of what is now a border, but was not, for me, it's my great-grandmother was Tarahumara, the great peoples who barefoot ran in the hills of Chihuahua, and those who found themselves the accident of history, the erasure of stories and of people. And so when we look at what do we do to approach history, first and foremost, we have to see it clear-eyed. Secondly, those of us now in representative power have to look back for those who came before us and apologize, something that Mr. O'Farrell, in a motion I'm sure he'll talk about in a minute, has introduced, and I can't wait to sign. To be able to say I'm sorry for what the 80,000 lives within a decade or two that were lost here in California. The way that this city, when it was a Mexican city and then an American city, had a system of imprisonment in our jails, which would give alcohol to our local native residents, arrest them after they drank on a Friday and Saturday, and then with slave labor said the only way you can get out of jail is to work the rest of the week until they were released and given more alcohol so that the cycle continued. That means the walls that we are around and the buildings that we are here were built on the slave labor of native inhabitants, and we are sorry. We're sorry as a city for all the things that were done as a Spanish city, a Mexican city, an American city, to erase the peoples whose land this is and always will be. But after we say we're sorry, we must also go further, because sorry isn't enough. It's to take the actions that we hope to be modeling here today to return land to tribes who still aren't recognized by our federal government, another act of erasure. To be able to say, we do not only recognize you, but this land we will share and return to you. We think about what were the names before we called them in English Eagle Rock, a holy rock that must have been for Native peoples a place of gathering, we know that. Or what today is a Mount Hollywood, one of the highest points that folks would come to. We know still the native names of the Los Angeles River. We know why downtown is here and not on the coast, because of the waters that came at the intersection of the Arroyo Seco and now the Los Angeles rivers. But we're here today to make history, not just to mark history, and to announce our plans to develop a cultural easement agreement to grant tribal members regular priority access to the park for the practice of traditional ceremonies. That's a fancy way of saying we're saying this is your land. Los Angeles County is home to the largest Native population in America, representing tribal affiliations from across what is now the United States of America. And we're proud to be leading this movement. It's overdue. And I want to thank those leaders. It's not just us as elected officials, but Kimberly Morales Johnson of the Gabrielino Tongva San Gabriel Band of Mission Indians and our Native American Commissioner. Please give her a round of applause and thank her for the extraordinary work she has done. Chrissy Castro, who is the president of the Native American Indian Commission, which is part of the city and county. Please give her a round of applause as well. We have Claudia Luna from our new Civil and Human Rights and Equity Department. Yes, the city of Los Angeles finally has a Civil Rights Department. Patricia Alarcon, my dear friend and president of the El Pueblo Commission, without whom we couldn't have done this. I want to thank General Manager Mike Scholl from our Department of Recreation and Parks, Sylvia Patsouris, the president of the Rec and Parks Commission. There are so many. Arturo Chavez, of course, who heads up El Pueblo, too, who's here. Arturo, is he behind us? There, back there. Thank you, Arturo, for your incredible leadership as well. You know, we're emerging from a pandemic. I'll just say a couple last words, a couple things in Spanish, and then I will promise I'll stop talking. But we're emerging from a pandemic in which a lot of people, rightfully so, talk about the trauma of the past year. We've all lost family members. We've all lost neighbors. We've all lost coworkers. But we're really talking about the trauma of millennia here today. The trauma that led us before this pandemic. And Christopher Hawthorne, who very, very beautifully is up there in the balcony. Somebody should take a picture of him there. Maybe I'll get it for you. Who convened as our city's first chief design officer a civic memory working group at City Hall. This was long before Confederate statues were being pulled down. This was long before people took to the streets to demand racial justice. We saw that this was a moment for us to realize this isn't just holy ground for Native peoples. A block away, the largest massacre of Chinese American, maybe of any Americans in our nation's history occurred, literally a block from here. And we have little more than a plaque for what became the largest lynching in American history. A group that came together with historians, indigenous elders and scholars, artists, civic and cultural leaders and others, was charged with a very simple thing: to make recommendations about how Los Angeles can engage more productively and honestly with our past. This is not about tearing down or erecting statues. This is about telling the complicated truths of history and doing our best to make sure that they haven't been buried or whitewashed. And the working group stayed busy throughout the pandemic. And I hope all of you will look at the report that they put out called Past Due. And it was certainly past due. And that work moves forward. And among the recommendations, it calls for the city to develop an indigenous land acknowledgement policy. I asked Christopher, what land can we give back? And it's complicated, because when the federal government doesn't recognize you, you can't just give it. But working through the nonprofit groups that do recognize that these tribes do exist and that these people do exist, we figured out a way, just as we see at University High School, and just as we've seen in the city of San Fernando, a way to right the wrong. But it's not just about that. It's about the broader work to repair the relationship with communities and reckon with past harms. So I come here today not to say that this is a finishing point. This is a starting point. And we have a lot of work to do. Our city's Recreation and Parks Department and El Pueblo, in collaboration with the Native American Commission, is working to develop the framework for this cultural easement agreement, to rename the square behind us, to make sure that these long overdue steps that we are taking are the right ones, come from and with our indigenous communities. That's what today's about. That's not a day off. We hope to make it a day off for everybody. We need to make sure that is. We certainly do that in the city of Los Angeles. But to have it be a day of education, of, yes, sadness and remembrance, but of celebration and ambition, reflection and respect, of clarity. I want to close my remarks today by saying to all of LA's indigenous communities, this park, this land, all the spaces from which your people were displaced, we make a point today, very humbly, of welcoming you back into these spaces. Today is where we celebrate our land's traditions, our land's people, and to make this every single day a city of belonging once again. Let me say a few things in Spanish, and then I'm going to turn it over to our chief in the council. Hoy, en el Día de los Pueblos Indígenas, nos encontramos aquí para anunciar que la ciudad de Los Ángeles empezará el proceso para renombrar el lugar conocido como el Parque Serra. Un nuevo nombre que se desarrollará en colaboración con líderes nativos, señalando un nuevo capítulo entre la ciudad y las comunidades tribales locales. También estamos desarrollando un convenio de propiedad cultural para otorgar acceso prioritario al parque a miembros de las tribus para práctica de ceremonias tradicionales. Este es trabajo increíblemente importante y de gran espera. Estoy aquí con los líderes del Consejo Municipal, Mitch O'Farrell, Kevin de León, los líderes comunitarios también. Y estoy sumamente agradecido por poder llevar este trabajo junto con estos líderes de las tribus y la ciudad quienes están aquí el día de hoy. El Día de los Pueblos Indígenas tiene que ver con la reflexión y el respeto, con claridad y con celebración. Es a través de la honestidad sobre los capítulos dolorosos del pasado de nuestra ciudad y nación que podemos verdaderamente acudir hacia un futuro más justo. With that, let me turn it over to the man inside our city government who really set this in motion and launched the national movement, my friend, Councilmember Mitch O'Farrell.
I want to thank Mayor Garcetti for his generosity, and also just to let everyone know that when I did the apology motion back in June, the very next day I'm with Mayor Garcetti and he says, you know what, let's do something really powerful. Let's talk about returning land, returning property to the indigenous people of Los Angeles. And I knew that this was much more than just a gesture. This is action upon an idea, upon our own mission, upon our own passion. So I want to thank Mayor Garcetti for this incredible gesture to all of us and all of the people and original inhabitants of Los Angeles. I want to thank Chief Morales, and I want to thank President Ortega, Vice President Villaseñor, Commission President Chrissy Castro, on all of the important folks gathered here today. Thank you for the beautiful ceremony and the blessing and granting us the permission to have this event here today, announcing these series of very important initiatives that really continue our trajectory toward reclaiming the truth, reclaiming our collective history, which is the only way to set us on a course for a future with integrity and honesty. And that is what this is all about. I also want to thank my friends Taboo and Pat Vegas and PJ Vegas. You really did bring it, the first couple of Indigenous Peoples Day celebrations, heading the talent and the cultural representation of local, incredible, spectacular talent to help tell the story of what these celebrations are all about and Indigenous and Native pride is all about. All land is Indigenous land. The Los Angeles of today sits on ancestral Tongva and Tataviam land. For over 12,000 years before first contact and colonization, there were tens of millions of people in the Americas. In California, the Spanish instituted the mission system, including Mission San Fernando and Mission San Gabriel, here in the Los Angeles area. The California missions began as a coordinated effort to convert Native Americans to Catholicism, subjugate the native population, and expand Spanish territory. This was not a benign religious conversion mission. It was a taking. This crusade led to the annihilation of native cultures and spiritual practices and atrocities against California's indigenous population over the course of several hundred years. There were 21 missions in all, lasting from 1769 until roughly 1833. The tragic consequences of the California mission system experienced in the lives of Native Californians experience those consequences to this day. Places like Serra Park, named after Junipero Serra, who in this region led local subjugation and conversion efforts on behalf of the Catholic Church, are a powerful symbol of past wrongs. This is an opportunity to set a more honest, restorative path for the future of our Native youth. This is not to slam Catholicism. It's not to slam Christianity. My own family comes from the religious beliefs of what I just mentioned. So religion has its place, but we have to acknowledge the facts of history at the same time. With our Indigenous Land Initiative, we take stock of our past, acknowledge historic wrongs by the state and the city of Los Angeles, and move forward together, no longer in denial of the truth. As part of the Indigenous Land Initiative, today I'm making the following announcements. This week at City Council, I will introduce a resolution containing a formal apology from the City of Los Angeles to Native American tribes. This apology accompanies the actions outlined by the mayor, as well as these additional steps. I will also introduce a motion to update the city's seal and flag to include representation of local tribes and Indigenous Americans and the thousands of years of history that preceded colonization. I'll also introduce a resolution that seeks federal and state partnership to rename the Christopher Columbus Transcontinental Highway, a portion of the 10 freeway through Los Angeles, with acknowledgement of and respect for our indigenous history. Here is why visibility is so important. Several hundred years of genocide has led to the following sobering and tragic statistics in modern-day Native America. In LA County alone, 25% of Native Americans suffer from clinical depression. Native Americans across the U.S. have the highest rates of any demographic of heart disease, cancer, accidental injuries and accidental death, diabetes, alcoholism, respiratory diseases, strokes, cirrhosis of the liver, flu and pneumonia, kidney disease, drug addiction, suicide, death by homicide. We need to remember our missing Indigenous women, hypertension, and infant mortality. Indigenous Americans also have the highest high school dropout rate in the United States. On this Indigenous Peoples Day 2021, let us remember why our work is so important and why it must continue, while we also highlight Native American resilience and its many cultures. More cultures existed in what is now the continental United States than in all of Europe before first contact and colonization. Let's just remember that for a moment. All that was lost, but all that can be reclaimed. Indigenous Peoples Day is truly a holiday worth celebrating because it acknowledges the sacrifices and contributions of the people who made everything possible for all of us. I thank all of you. We're on our way. Let's bring the change that the people of Los Angeles and the Indigenous Americans deserve. Thank you so much, and may God bless.
Bravo. Bravo. Thank you. And it's music to my ears what you said with those motions. Pat Morrison just wrote a piece on how ugly our flag is. It's been my obsession, as my staff knows, to get a new flag, not only because it's ugly, but because imagine a seal here. And I think part of the seal is an important part of history. America, California, Spain, and Mexico. But where's the nationhood before that? Imagine adding a fifth or something to that. They would visibly see it, or maybe encompass it itself. So I can't wait. It will be long after I'm mayor, but I can't wait to come home and to see our new flag and even our new seal. So thank you for that so much. Next, hold on. I'm going to introduce Councilmember Kevin De León to come forward. He's been a leader not just here locally and here in his district, been a part of making sure this history could happen today, but at the state level as well. Somebody who has worked closely with the tribes of California to increase their power and economic independence, to honor history, and he honors us today by being here as well. Councilmember? Thank you so much. Thank you.
Good morning. Mr. Mayor, thank you very much for your incredible leadership. Mr. O'Farrell, thank you very much for your demonstrated leadership in recognizing the indigenous people of our native lands. I'm looking forward greatly to hearing the measures when it comes to the committee that I chair, and we're looking forward to a resounding unanimous vote to get the measures out of our committee to the full council for a full-fledged vote. To our Chairman Morales, to Mr. President Ortega, it's an honor to be here with each and every one of you. Today we recognize the long, rich, and proud history of our indigenous brothers and sisters across America, but especially here in the great city of Los Angeles. We also remember the unnecessary pain and suffering that was inflicted upon them through colonization, through genocide. The genocide that brought disease, that brought bullets, that brought lynching. Centuries that were institutionalized. We have reached a time in our national history where we acknowledged the policies that systematically sought to assimilate and relocate our indigenous brothers and sisters and eradicate their cultures. To ignore these historic facts is nothing less than denying the truth about the brutality our Native people endured for generations. But Indigenous Peoples Day isn't just about acknowledging the horrors of the past, the horrors that were inflicted upon them. It's also a day to celebrate and uplift the incredible contribution of Native cultures that have played a huge role in shaping American culture, the demonstration of human resilience in the face of onslaught of adversity. For too long, for many centuries, the United States has overlooked, ignored, and disregarded what Native people had to offer. And it's been to our collective detriment. Over the past 18 months, we have experienced a global pandemic that we have never experienced before in our lifetimes. And as Councilmember Mitch O'Farrell just mentioned, when it comes to violence and homicide, when it comes to type 2 diabetes, when it comes to heart disease, also when it comes to the coronavirus, when it comes to people of color, our indigenous community were those who suffer the most. The highest infection and mortality rates. Frontline workers, essential workers that were treated, quite frankly, like expendable workers, made to wait in the back for life-saving vaccines. But this is the face of resiliency when we talk about our indigenous communities here in the United States, but especially in Los Angeles. And we can learn from those past mistakes and finally recognize the contributions that indigenous people have made throughout history in public service, in academia, in business, in politics, in arts, as well as so many other fields. I am so excited because when Chairman Morales introduced his beautiful and highly intelligent niece, Elizabeth, who's 9 years old, we're looking at the present as well as the future. When you have strong political leadership emanating from City Hall, directly from the executive branch, through our mayor, Eric Garcetti, through the legislative branch, Councilmember Mitch O'Farrell, spearheading, moving forward, what we know will be policies that will help change the human condition for the better for our communities here in the great city of Los Angeles. This day demands our pledge to never forget the centuries of violence, of displacement, forced assimilation, as well as victimization inflicted upon Native communities and tribes across our country. It is our collective responsibility to affirm the dignity and respect for Native sisters and brothers this day and every day as we continue to do this difficult work to bridge the divide our country and the communities have experienced. I also want to take just a very quick moment to also recognize the many tribes that often are overlooked and overseen that are present here today. Many tribes like this Coras from Nayarit, the Mayas from Guatemala and southern Mexico, the Oaxaqueños from the state of Oaxaca, los Mixtecos, as well as the Zapotecos. Many of them that are with us today, who are the driving economic force of the great city of Los Angeles, who largely and often have been ignored and not recognized too, as we had political borders that were pressed upon us, whether it's a border between the United States and Mexico, or that southern border between Mexico and Guatemala. So many of these individuals, groups, are here right now, working under a brutal sun to feed all of us. They're part of our larger family together. That's why I am so proud to be here with President Ortega, Chairman Morales, our great Mayor Eric Garcetti, and our leader on this issue for the human and civil rights of all indigenous people, Mr. Mitch O'Farrell. Just very quickly, yo nomás quisiera conocer, Presidente Ortega, el jefe de los jefes, el señor Morales, nuestro jefe de la segunda ciudad más grande en los Estados Unidos, Eric Garcetti, el jefe del Concilio Distrito número 13, right here, Mitch O'Farrell, para reconocer que hoy día es el día de nuestra gente indígena, nuestra gente que sufrieron bajo políticas públicas de brutalidad, haciendo todo lo posible para poner a esta gente como esclavos aquí en su propia tierra, la tierra de Los Ángeles, el estado de California, los Estados Unidos de América. Hoy día reconocemos 100% y respetamos y honramos nuestra gente indígena, que es nuestra gente, que son nuestros líderes al final de cuentas, que es gente que trabaja desde la madrugada hasta el anochecer, haciendo todo lo posible para mejorar la condición humana de toda nuestra gente, sin importar el color de su rostro, su país de origen, su lengua, su estado legal, porque somos seres humanos que merecemos dignidad y respeto. Gracias al presidente Ortega, señor Morales, jefe de jefes, and Mr. Mayor, I thank you very much. Gracias a todos. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Council Member, Jefe del Distrito 14. Next, I'd like to invite Rudy Ortega back up here to say a few words. Thank you, President Ortega, for bringing the voice. I don't look at you as the head of a constituent group. I look at you as an equal, fellow elected official, and today this compact we make together. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mayor Garcetti and Councilmember De León and Councilmember O'Farrell for walking to us. This is truly a time of history that we're marking. When we talk about the past and we bring up the history, the tribes, as well as Chairman Morales and myself, we've always echoed our ancestors' voice, always striving and fighting for the acknowledgement of our peoples, always striving to regain back the lands that was wrongfully taken from us. My great-great-grandfather, Antonio Maria Ortega, 18 years old, was evicted and removed off our ancestral lands by county sheriffs by the order of a retired senator of California, Charles McClay, who then created the city of San Fernando. Had he not moved us off our land, our village, we would have our reservation in the northeast of Los Angeles of the San Fernando Valley. Today, the tribe, as I shared with Chairman Morales, our tribes, are still striving for federal acknowledgement. The practice of acknowledging our tribes in history. But today, at this level, Mayor Garcetti and the council members beside him is acknowledging our tribe's history, acknowledging our tribal nation, acknowledging our tribal people. And that warms our hearts and knows that we have a strive future to bring together. And this promise that they're working on, the apology, as we're moving forward to acknowledge our history, to talk about the truth of our peoples, and bring together closure and work together in collaboration as nations we should be. So I thank both Mayor Garcetti, I thank Councilmember O'Farrell, Councilmember De León, of working on this motion to move forward for our people. And I know in my heart, as I share ancestral villages with the Gabrielino Tongva and so many of my people who enrolled in my tribe, because we're close relatives, that both our nations will become one day federally recognized by the U.S. government. Thank you.
From your lips to Washington's ears. It's one of the perversions of history. They say there are not enough of you, and that is the proof that we are here, and we're here. Thank you very much. Next, I'd like to ask Kimberly Morales-Johnson, who I mentioned as my appointee to our Native American Indian Commission, has really spearheaded so much of this work, both in the group that we convened and in the work that we're doing. We're so blessed to have her here. Commissioner, come on forward.
Miha, Netwan Yan, Kimberly Morales Johnson, Miha. Thank you, Mary Garcetti and Councilmember O'Farrell and Mr. De León and everyone that was involved in today's press conference. On behalf of the Gabrielino Tongva San Gabriel Band of Mission Indians, my family and my community, we would like to express our deepest gratitude for the people and for the work on this resolution and the renamings and the acknowledgement of the Gabrielino Tongva and the Fernandeño people. These are all great steps to correcting the injustices of our people and our families and everything that they have endured. In our Tongva language, the word for people is Tongva or Tongve. It literally translates to people of the earth. Our word for land or earth in the Tongva language is Ohud. There is a deep tradition and spiritual connection for the Tongva people and our land, our Ohud. We are part of the earth. Mother Earth gives us life, food, water, and medicine. Medicine for healing comes in many ways. Today we see our sacred Mother Earth burning with wildfires and numerous natural disasters. It's time to heal our Mother Earth. Connecting the Gabrielino Tongva and the Fernandeño people with their traditional homelands is necessary to continue our path to healing. We are tired of our ancestors being unearthed and removed for the convenience of development on our sacred sites like Pavungna, Playa Vista, and the Four Channel Islands. The connection with the Tongva people to our traditional homelands means a final resting place for our ancestors, a chance for our tribal food sovereignty, and it creates a path for healing to this land. We appreciate all of the work on the resolution and the apologies, and we look forward to continuing our work with the City and County of Los Angeles. In the memory of our ancestors, we work to correct the injustices, their memory, and for the legacy of our future Tongva children. And I specifically asked Ellie to be here today. We took her out of school because this day is a day for her to remember for the rest of her life, and that's why we do the work that we do. This. Owishkane.
And I said I'll write any note that she needs if she gets any trouble from the principal. So, thank you for bringing in the world that we live in today. I know a lot of Native leaders called for action globally on the climate crisis on this day. I went up recently to Owens Valley and met with the Big Pine Reservation with leaders of Shoshone tribes that are there. And I don't know if you read today the work that we've done for the last 8 years to try to make right water that we took to build this thirsty metropolis. We now are returning back to Lake Mono and the work that we have done to make sure that Owens Valley can prosper and the Native peoples there can as well is a very proud part of this movement. Chrissy Castro, as I mentioned, leads this commission, and she helps represent the largest Native population anywhere in America. It's a diverse population. Anybody who's worked with it knows that, like, what do they say, the smaller the town, the more vicious the politics, but you've navigated it really well and done an amazing job, so please welcome Chrissy Castro.
Good day, everyone. Happy Indigenous Peoples Day. I'm Chrissy Castro. I'm Nakaidine, born for Hanagani, or Mexican clan, born for the one who walks around clan, and I'm humbled to speak today. I am a guest on the ancestral lands of the Tongva and Tataviam peoples, and I'm here as a representative of the LA City County Native American Indian Commission. 45 years ago, the commission was founded to help build a better future for Native peoples in now called Los Angeles. And we take very seriously our responsibility to do that. Today, the themes that I've heard are about action and celebration. And we could not support both of those themes more strongly. We are hoping that what we're doing today is laying a pathway for a better future for our generations 45 years, 100 years into the future. We know that our Native American community is a very growing and a very young population. In the state of California alone, we had a population expansion of over double nationally, and the same is true in California. Our population is growing, and now is the time for us to build these foundations, to restore, to recover, and to reclaim all of our lands, our languages, our cultures, and to continue to contribute to this place that we all love. I also want to say that in light of the idea of celebration, today is really a day for us to also celebrate the contributions that our community has made and it continues to make. So today we celebrate our community who are demanding to have land back and make that into reality, who are demanding to move beyond just tribal consultation to consent, who are fighting against dehumanization of our peoples by toppling racist statues, holidays, and mascots, who are fighting every day to protect our elders and our young people and everyone in our community from COVID, and who are fighting for justice and liberation for our peoples on all fronts. So as we celebrate and reflect on Indigenous Peoples Day today, we know that there are better days to come because we believe in the beauty and in the determination and the resilience of our peoples. Thank you.
Can you grab one of those chairs? I think there's only one speaker who should finish this all out, and I just asked her, and Ellie Morales-Johnson is going to come say our final words. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for making history. And you can stand here. I'll hold it for you. Don't worry. Because you want to be seen.
I just wanted to say that this is a very important day for our culture because it recognizes how important it was and how we use all these natural resources to do many things, including medicine, food, and water. And it's important to always celebrate this day to recognize the Indigenous people. And
thank you all so much. Have a blessed day. Thank you.